I would ask and pray that you would bear with me today. My voice is threatening to quit on me, and I'm telling it, no, you're not. So we're fighting through. This morning. So I'll do my best. Just wait. Just wait. You ever sit down with a kid to watch a movie that they've never seen before, but that you are very familiar with? Like, for instance, watching the old Disney classic Snow White with a little girl who has no idea what's going to happen in the movie. So imagine this. The little girl, she's upset at the beginning when Snow White is mistreated by her stepmother, the queen. She is thrilled when the magic mirror says that Snow White is indeed the fairest of them all. She's glad when Snow White escapes the queen and ends up in the forest, aided by the huntsman and all the little woodland creatures. She laughs at the seven dwarves, especially Dopey. Gotta love Dopey. She gets worried when the queen disguises herself as an old woman and tricks Snow White into biting the poisoned apple. Spoiler alerts, by the way. The movie was made in 1937, if you haven't seen it by now. And she's distraught when Snow White falls into a deep sleep, seemingly dead, placed in a glass casket in the woods. Now, at this point in the movie, your little viewing companion, who, as a reminder, has never seen this movie, she is so overwhelmed, so upset with what has gone on in this movie that she wants to give up. She wants to turn off the movie. She wants to quit. She doesn't want to watch anymore. But because you know that's not the end of the story, because you know what happens next, you are able to tell that little girl with full confidence, just wait. Just wait. Don't give up. Don't quit. It's not over yet. Hang in there. Something better is coming. Just wait. Now, whether it's a movie like Snow White or some real-life crisis, when we are confronted by unhappy endings, when we are threatened by tragedy and suffering, sometimes we need to be encouraged by that, right? To just wait. Don't give up. Don't quit. It's not over. Hang in there. It's not the ability to interpret dreams and visions. And in chapter, he receives a message. And the message is this: just wait. Just wait. But he receives the message in an unusual way. The one who up to this point in the book of Daniel has been granted the ability to interpret the dreams of others, the visions of others, now has one of his own. And this dream marks a turning point in the book. Some of you have been here through our entire series through Daniel. But chapter 7 marks a turning point. So there are 12 chapters in the book of Daniel. We've been through the first half of the book. Is one thing, one way, and then this marks kind of a hinge moment in the book of Daniel. First of all, up to this point, the book of Daniel has been chronological. Everything has moved forward in time, one thing after another. You can go back in history and trace the timeline of the first 6 chapters of Daniel. But now, at the beginning of chapter 7, we actually go back in time to the rule of King Belshazzar. So that's one difference. Second, every other dream and vision that we've seen so far has been given to outsiders for Daniel to interpret as a message to them. Up to this point, these dreams have been messages to the outside world. Here, God gives a vision to Daniel. So from here on, these will be messages directly to and for God's own people, and by extension, us. And then third, everything up to this point in the book of Daniel has been written as a story, as a narrative. It's been an account of what happens to particular people in a particular place at a particular time. They're stories with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Here, though, in chapter 7, the kind of writing, the type of writing changes. It's no longer narrative, but it's what biblical scholars and theologians call apocalyptic literature. I introduced our students to that word Wednesday night. Apocalyptic, you know that word, right? We use it to describe big, epic, terrifying, widespread events. Just a few years ago, it popped up on my Facebook memories, snowpocalypse, right? 2021, everything was iced over. Everybody was closed into their house. You couldn't get anywhere or do anything. People's power went out. Snowpocalypse, big, epic, horrible event. Well, the Greek word apocalypsis means revelation. In fact, in the Greek New Testament, if you go to the last book of the Bible, which we know as what? Revelation. Unveiling. That's what it means. It's a pulling back the curtain on the unseen, transcendent world and its role in bringing this present world to an end. As a writing style, Apocalypsis is very visual with a lot of big, epic imagery, lots of scary pictures, lots of strange visions, lots of massive cosmic storylines about this huge, grand, unfolding story of history, how God acts in big ways to accomplish his ultimate purposes at the end of time. But it does this through the abundant use of symbols, pictures, metaphors, things that represent other things. It uses numbers symbolically, representing maybe something other than its literal value. It's often figurative rather than literal. Maybe the easiest way to explain it is that apocalyptic writing is more like watching a movie than reading words on a page. It's grand. It's cinematic. It's intended to engage all of your senses, more than just giving you something to know or something to understand. It makes you feel something. So I want you to take your Bible, turn with me to Daniel chapter 7. And as I read this, I want you to feel it. I want you to imagine what soundtrack, what music would be playing in the background of this if this were a movie. What are the sounds, the big orchestral, symphonic sounds that would make you feel this in your bones? I want you to visualize it in your head. And I don't often recommend this, but if it helps, and if you promise not to fall asleep, you might try closing your eyes and letting your imagination run wild with what this would look like on the movie screen of your imagination, complete with the soundtrack that goes with it. So here we go, Daniel chapter 7. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and visions of his head as he lay in his bed. Then he wrote down the dream and told the sum of the matter. Daniel declared, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea. And four great beasts came up out of the sea, different from one another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. Then as I looked, its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and the mind of a man was given to it. And behold, another beast, the second one, like a bear. It was raised up on one side. It had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and it was told, "Arise, devour much flesh." After this I looked, and behold, another, like a leopard, with 4 wings of a bird on its back. And the beast had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, terrifying and dreadful and exceedingly strong. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke in pieces and stamped what was left with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another horn, a little one, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. As I looked, thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames. A stream of fire issued and came out from before him. 1,000 thousands served him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court sat in judgment, and the books were opened. I looked then because of the sound of the great words that the horn was speaking, and as I looked, the beast was killed, and its body destroyed and given over to be burned with fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was taken away, but their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. I saw in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven, there came one like a son of man. And he came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. To him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. As for me, Daniel, my spirit within me was anxious, and the visions of my head alarmed me. I approached one of those who stood there and asked him the truth concerning all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of the things. These 4 great beasts are 4 kings who shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, forever, and ever. Then I desired to know the truth about the 4th beast, which was different from all the rest, exceedingly terrifying, with its teeth of iron and claws of bronze, and which devoured and broke in pieces and stamped what was left with its feet, and about the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn that came up, and before which 3 of them fell, the horn that had eyes and a mouth that spoke great things, and that seemed greater than its companions. As I looked, this horn made war with the saints and prevailed over them until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given for the saints of the Most High, and the time came when the saints possessed the kingdom. Thus he said, as for the 4th beast, there shall be a 4th kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all the kingdoms, and it shall devour the whole earth and trample it down and break it to pieces. As for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom 10 kings shall arise, and another shall arise after them. He shall be different from the former ones, and shall put down 3 kings. He shall speak words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and shall think to change the times and the law. And they shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. But the court shall sit in judgment and his dominion shall be taken away to be consumed and destroyed to the end. And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. His kingdom shall be an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Here is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts greatly alarmed me, and my color changed, but I kept the matter in my heart. Grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of our God stands forever. So we've gone back in time to King Belshazzar and Babylon, to a time before the great feast and the handwriting on the wall. And Daniel's vision begins with what we are wading through. It opens with winds from every direction, stirring up a great sea. In apocalyptic literature, especially in the Old Testament, the sea is a place of chaos. It's a place of disorder where evil rules. But God is the one doing the stirring. He's using the wind to raise up the very powers that will oppose him and his people. So from this churning sea appear 4 horrific beasts in succession, one after the other. The first is like a lion with eagle's wings, but the wings are plucked off, and it is made to stand on 2 legs like a man with the mind of a man. The second beast is like a bear raised up on one side, so disproportionate, but devouring and sent to devour more. The third beast is like a leopard, but with, unlike any leopard you've ever seen, with 4 wings and 4 heads, that has dominion or power, authority. And then the fourth beast is said to be unlike any animal. It's not compared to an animal, right? First one is like a lion. Second one is like a bear. Third one is like a leopard. This fourth one is unlike any other animal, different from all the other beasts, terrifying, dreadful, exceedingly strong, with a mouth full of iron teeth, with claws of bronze, devouring and destroying everything in its path. It has 10 horns, plus another little horn that has eyes like a man and a mouth that boasts of great things. 4 beasts rising up out of the water, one after another, like some horrific science fiction movie, right? So what are we to make of that? Is Daniel suggesting that there will somewhere at some time be a literal sea whipped up by literal winds, and 4 literal beasts will rise out of it? Well, we know that's not the case. We know because we're told that these beasts represent something else. Verse 17 tells us that these 4 beasts represent what? 4 kings, 4 kingdoms. So the beasts are symbols. Now, the mention of the 4 kings and 4 kingdoms may remind us of Nebuchadnezzar's dream back in Daniel chapter 2, if you were here for that sermon. In Daniel chapter 2, King Nebuchadnezzar has this vision, this dream of a giant statue of a man made of 4 different metals, each representing a different human empire. A head of gold, chest of silver, thighs of bronze, and then legs of iron and feet of iron and clay. And so we might reason that these 4 kingdoms here in Daniel 7 correspond to those 4 kingdoms. That makes sense, right? But at the same time, I think we need to be careful about making definitive statements of what we are certain of. If you just read that, if I just read that to you, you've never heard it before, your response in your heart and mind were probably, what? What in the world? What's happening? What is that? What does it mean? And so I've read that a lot, and I still, when I read it, you know what I say? What? Like, what in the world? What in the world? And so we need to be careful in making these absolute statements about what we are certain of. We can make, at best, educated guesses. So what kingdoms might these four beasts represent? Well, in Daniel 2, the statue had a gold head, which we are told in Daniel chapter 2 represents Babylon and King Nebuchadnezzar. And so it would seem that a lion with wings might also represent Babylon. After all, in Jeremiah chapter 4 and chapter 50, both of them compare Nebuchadnezzar to, guess what animal? A lion. And then, if you know the story of Nebuchadnezzar, when he's humbled, when he is handed over to madness, we are told his hair grows as long as eagle's feathers and his nails are like bird claws. So you got some bird imagery there. And then when he is finally restored to sanity, he is raised back up, and it says in Daniel 2, he is given the mind of a man. So that first beast sounds a lot like Babylon. In Daniel chapter 2, the statue has a chest of silver, the second metal. The second beast in Daniel 7 is a lopsided bear eating whatever is near it. Well, we know from history that the Babylonians were replaced by the Medo-Persian Empire, which consumed all the surrounding kingdoms. We also know that one side of that kingdom, the Persians, overshadowed the other side, the Medes, both culturally and historically. So the second beast seems like it might be the Medo-Persians. King Cyrus, King Darius. In Daniel chapter 2, the statue has thighs of bronze, the third metal. Here in Daniel 7, the third beast is a winged leopard with 4 heads. Well, we know from history that the Medo-Persian Empire was followed by the Greeks under the leadership of Alexander the Great, if you know your history. And as the leopard represents swiftness and speed, Alexander conquered the known world by the time he was 32 years old. And then, upon his death, the empire was divided into, guess how many regions? 4 regions ruled by 4 successors corresponding to 4 heads. So it sounds like that third beast might well be the Greeks. And in Daniel chapter 2, the statue has legs and feet of iron. And here, the fourth beast has devouring teeth of iron. We know from history that the Greeks were followed by, anybody know? The Romans, which certainly fits the description of being dreadful and terrifying and exceedingly strong. The Roman Empire conquered and destroyed in ways that no one had before. And it has horns, which represent power and authority, which the Caesars, the rulers of Rome, certainly had in abundance. So each of these beasts may represent a single specific kingdom, but at the same time may also be a collective representation of every human kingdom, every human empire, every human power that sets itself against God. And here's why I say that. By the time you get to the end of the Bible, in Revelation chapter 13, which, by the way, Revelation is another apocalyptic text, big, epic scenes, cinematic, right? Symbolic. In Revelation 13, you find all 4 of Daniel's beasts merged into a single beast that gains the allegiance of the whole earth as it opposes God. Let me read this for you. This is Revelation 13, 1 through 7. I want you to listen to the similarities between this one beast and the 4 of Daniel's beasts. John in Revelation writes, "And I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its horns and blasphemous names on its heads. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And the beast was given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. Also, it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them, and authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation. Does it sound familiar? So it could be that while Daniel's 4 beasts do represent historic empires, Babylon, the Medo-Persians, the Greeks, Rome, that they may also stand as a picture of various earthly kingdoms that oppose God, empowered by the forces of Satan himself. Because the truth is, was Rome the final earthly power to ever oppose God? No. You've had the Soviet Union, Nazi Germany, Communist China, even now North Korea. You had Cambodia under Pol Pot. You had Imperial Japan. You had the Ottoman Empire. You had Uganda under Idi Amin, and countless others, kingdoms, powers of men that did horrific things that set themselves up against the one true God. And while we're on the subject of identifying images according to history, you may be wondering who the little horn represents. Remember, it was 10 horns, and then a little horn sprouted up, killed 3 of them, and then had eyes and a mouth and started to talk a lot. Who is the violent ruler who will arise from the 4th kingdom, putting down kings, speaking boastfully against God, wearing out the saints, changing times and laws, prevailing over God's people for 3.5 times, is what it says. That doesn't specify whether it's 3.5 years or decades or just symbolically half of 7, which represents totality. Who is that? Who's that supposed to be? Well, historians and Bible scholars have suggested names like Antiochus Epiphanes of Greece or the Roman general Titus. Many believe that the reference here is to a future Antichrist who will defy God like no one has before him, oppressing and persecuting believers in unspeakable ways. The one described in 2 Thessalonians as the man of lawlessness, or in 1 John as the Antichrist. And maybe there's a sense in which it's all of those collapsed into one single image, one single figure, this little horn. There are some parts of this vision that we can't be certain of. We've kind of got to make our best guess. But we can be sure that there will always be a series of earthly powers, ungodly kingdoms that will challenge God and attack his people. They will oppose and oppress and persecute and wage war one after another to devour even the whole earth, is what verse 23 says. Not content just to rule over their little part, but with a lust for power. In fact, we're told that the little boastful horn even makes war with the saints and prevails over them. Verse 21. He speaks words against God, and it says he wears out the saints. There will always be earthly powers. Some of them will be governments and dictators and nations. Others of them might be economic powers or educational powers. There will always be a series of powers that set themselves against God and against us, his people. But if you look at the dominion, the authority that these beasts have, it says it was given to them And if it's given, what else is true? It can be taken away. And who is it that gives and takes away authority? It's God. And look at verse 25 where it says, the saints shall be given into the hand of the little horn. Given by whom? By God. Even when it looks like evil has won the day, God is still in control. Just wait. Don't give up. Don't quit. It's not over. Hang in there. Something is better. Something better is coming. Just wait. So that's a description of what we are waiting through. But what are we waiting for? Whether that vision of the four beasts is in the past, in the future, ongoing, yet to be seen, or maybe a little bit of all of that, just like Snow White in that glass casket in the woods, seemingly dead, that was not the end of her story. Neither is the beast that prevails over God's people the end of our story. We are waiting for what is to come. And we see that in verses 9 through 14, where the arrogant boasting of the fourth beast is interrupted by an appearing. Who's appearing? Verse 9, God shows up. God takes the stage, spotlight is on him, thrones are placed, and the Ancient of Days takes his seat on his flaming chariot. This is a courtroom where charges are filed, judgments are made, verdicts are pronounced, and sentences are handed down. The judge is seated on a throne representing his power and dominion and authority. He is the one who rules and reigns, not these beasts. He is attended to by thousands and hundreds of millions. All the inhabitants of the earth stand before him. He is timeless and exceedingly wise. He is robed in white and transcendently pure. He appears in fire like he did before Moses at the burning bush, like he did during the Exodus before the people of Israel as a flaming cloud, and as he did when he gave the law at Mount Sinai. In verses 11 and 12, he passes judgment on all of the kings of the earth, all four of those beasts, and the great beast, the fourth one, is destroyed and burned in the flames of God's wrath. As fearsome as he was 2 seconds ago, now he's ashes. That quickly. The other beasts lose all their power and authority. They continue to exist only as shadows. And in their place appears with the clouds one who is like a son of man, an individual person, a single figure who is both human and divine, one who will reign as God's king. To him, the Ancient of Days gives dominion, glory, and a kingdom. All peoples, nations, and languages serve him. Unlike all of those other human empires, his everlasting dominion will never be taken away, and his kingdom shall not be destroyed. And who is this Son of Man? Who is this one who is like a man, but with the authority of God himself? Who is this one who will reign forever, forever and ever over an eternal kingdom? It's Jesus. And how do we know that? How do we know that's a picture of Jesus? Well, first, Jesus uses that exact phrase from that exact passage, the Son of Man, to refer to himself throughout the Gospels. Over 80 times in the New Testament, Jesus is called what? The Son of Man. Jesus speaking to the scribes in Matthew 9:6, he says, "But that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins." He then turns to the paralytic and says, "Rise, pick up your bed and go home." Who did that? The Son of Man, Jesus. Mark 8:31. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. Who's that describing? The Son of Man, Jesus. In Luke chapter 19, after Zacchaeus, you remember Zacchaeus? The wee little man climbs up in a sycamore tree. Once he repents and is saved, Jesus says this, "For the Son of Man came to seek and save that which was lost." Who's it talking about there? It's talking about Jesus. The Son of Man is Jesus. We also know it's Jesus because verse 14 speaks of the Ancient of Days giving the Son of Man dominion. And in Psalm 2, we see God pass judgment on the nations while giving his Son dominion and authority. In Ephesians 1, verses 20 through 22, we see God granting Christ dominion and authority. It says, when he raised him from the dead and seated him at his right hand in the heavenly places, far above all rule and authority and power and dominion, and above every name that is named, not only in this age, but also in the one to come. And he put all things under his feet and gave him as head over all things. In the Great Commission in Matthew 28, the resurrected Christ says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me, not will be given to me one day. So there is a sense in which Christ reigns and has dominion even now. The Son of Man is Jesus. But at the same time, we know that his dominion, his rule and reign will one day be fully and finally realized when he comes back. Amen? Mark 8:38, Jesus says, "For whoever is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him will the Son of Man also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." And in Mark 13:26, he says, "And then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory." That sounds a lot like Daniel 7, doesn't it? The Son of Man is who? Jesus. And then finally, we know it's Jesus because of the promise in verses 18, verse 22, and verse 27 that the Son of Man will reign not by himself, but with who? With the saints. We're told in 2 Timothy 2:12, if we endure, we also will reign with him. How about that? And we're told in Revelation 22:5, for believers in the new heavens and the new earth, in the capital city, the new Jerusalem, and night will be no more. They will need no light or lamp or sun, for the Lord God will be their light, and they will reign forever and ever. The Son of Man is who? It's Jesus. When you consider what Daniel says we are waiting through and what we are waiting for, what's the purpose of this text? What's the goal? It isn't to try to identify with precision who each of these beasts is, who the little horn is, how long each empire will rule, or exactly when everything will come to an end. It's to know and believe this: worldly kingdoms may rule now, but just wait. Jesus reigns forever. Worldly kingdoms may rule now, but just wait. Jesus reigns forever. Amen. That's God's assurance to his people in Daniel's time, but also for us. A succession of ungodly, earthly, human empires will repeatedly rise against God and his people. Ultimate victory over them may be a long time coming. Certainly it was for Daniel. Daniel never saw that ultimate victory. For the Old Testament saints, it was a long time coming, even for the apostles and those in past generations. But those kingdoms will not last forever, and they will not succeed in the end. Fire will fall from heaven, righteousness will triumph, the Ancient of Days will destroy the beastly kings of this world, dominion will be given to the Son of Man, and salvation will come. We may not be saved from pain, but we can be saved from panic. We may not be saved from difficulty, but we can be saved from despair. We may not be saved from hostility, but we can be saved from hopelessness. Worldly kingdoms may rule now, but Jesus reigns forever. Just wait. If you'll pray with me.